All right, some of my favorite things to do on this channel are movie reviews, and we are back with another one. This time we went to go see Predator: Badlands. You want the short version? This movie was freaking dope, and I was pleasantly surprised by this. Walking into this, I didn't have the greatest of expectations because I saw some of the previews, which I usually don't like to watch, and I was like, I don't know. Great job. It was directed by Dan Trachtenberg, who is the same person who did Prey and the movie that I reviewed a couple of months ago, which is the animated film, which was Predator: Killer of Killers, which I was a fan of both. So to you, Dan Trachtenberg, I'm sorry for ever doubting you, but let's get into this quick overview of the plot. Cast out from its clan, an alien hunter and an unlikely ally embark on a treacherous journey in search of the ultimate adversary. As always, these reviews will be spoiler-free. That means I'm not giving away any plot points whatsoever. How I format these while I'm holding my phone is I always have my notes, which I take while I watch the movie, which I just briefly go over some points that I liked, positives, points that I didn't like, and then of course things that I'm a little wishy-washy on, which really means these are things that people will have contention points with, but it didn't ruin my overall enjoyment of the movie. The first thing I want to talk about is the action in this film. It drops you right into the action and just hits the ground running. There is little to no pickup between when you first look at it, and there's about a 20-minute cold open from when it starts where it is literally 90% action. It stops to take a breather once or twice, but it gets right into it and does not let up until the title card starts, which I'm a huge fan of. Anybody who likes Predator, I would think, especially starting from the first one, the most interesting points of the movie are the action. Overall, it is an action film, which means you shouldn't spend too much time trying to give me any exposition, and this film does that masterfully in my opinion. Everything that I need to find out is given through the story without having to stop and explain it to you. When introducing characters, it will tell you things that you need to know in the action of the film. Whether that's a different species or a different type of adversary, it just tells you it without going, oh, well, this person does this with some sort of long-ass explanation, which I don't really care about. Bring on the action. The pacing of the film is right to the point. It doesn't try to give you too much filler, and it still does it. It almost like it just made it a very lean and mean plot. I really am a person who complains about long run times when they don't have to be, and this is a prime example of that. Didn't give me too much filler, still explained the plot without having to go too much into it, and did it in a way that still made the movie very enjoyable while making it about the action for the most part. Great job at that. The runtime of this film, according to Google, is 1 hour and 47 minutes, but it's really about 1 hour and 30 minutes when you take out the credits and things like that, and it feels that way. It's quick, concise, and to the point. Another huge pro for me personally, I am a person who loves lore, which means I start reading things in expanded universes. So I knew about some of the things like Yautja Prime, which they kind of go into in some of the other movies, but in this one, there's a good portion of it where you spend it on Yautja Prime. If you don't know what that is the planet which the Predators, or the Yautja, which is the name of their species, hail from. This film really does go into the lore of it, the clans, some of the things that they have, their rituals, kind of how their hierarchies are, and how you can be cast out by family members. There are brothers and fathers and mothers and sisters, and why are they the way that they are? And these are questions that I think people would have in other movies, and it does begin to answer some of them, but it doesn't go too much into that it ruins the plot or the point of the movie. For the first time in these, instead of just hearing that normal, I'm not going to make the sound, but you know that Predator sound they have? We actually have a language, a spoken language. It sounded a lot to me like a mix of Valyrian and Huttese or something. I'm sounding like a complete nerd. Game of Thrones and Star Wars language, but it really did feel like a complete language. And of course, the cool weapons and kind of like their hierarchy. I just find that stuff really enjoyable. And if you're looking for more of that, then this is the film for you. And finally, this is a pro for me, but it might not be for everyone. If you're expecting a normal Predator plot where a Yautja comes onto a planet, there is an adversary, and the other ones it's been human, Predator 1, Predator 2, or even Predators where the main protagonists were human. This one actually subverts that, and now the main protagonist is a Yautja, which is something that if you're going to continue to make movies, one of the problems I have with movies like Terminator is it continues to just be the same thing. Someone comes back in time, here's a protector, and then here is a villain, which is like a new Terminator. Cool. Like, we've seen that a billion times. I think they did a great thing because it kind of refreshed it where now we're looking from the perspective of the Yautja. And in fact, there are 0 humans in this entire film, which kind of scared me a bit. But they did it in a way where you're dealing with mostly synthetics, which I will get into when I get into things I'm mixed on. It's a completely fresh take. It's still feels like that where you're dealing with a survivor, but in this case, the Yautja, because he is a runt, of the litter in a sense. He's the one that's considered the weakest of the clan. He feels very mortal. He doesn't feel like someone that's just this unstoppable force. And it's a refreshing take. I just found that super enjoyable. Like, I didn't think it was going to be that way. He's on this super dangerous planet, which again is explained in the outline that I gave you before. And it feels like he's just not in charge here. And now, obviously, as the movie goes on, you get a little bit of that action adventure thing. He's accompanied by a droid, which is played by Elle Fanning, who actually has 2 roles in this movie because there are 2 separate droids. If you're going to continue expanding on it, I think other franchises honestly should take notes that if you're going to continue to make movies, maybe try it from a different perspective. This was really awesome to see. Didn't expect to like it as much as I did, but I could go on and on about more pros, but I think anything else, I'd be giving away more like actual things that happen in a movie, and I don't want to do that. So I'm going to go right into the mixed part of this, where something that I think a lot of people walking into it, especially me, was the PG-13 rating. If you don't know, this movie's rated PG-13. All other Predator movies are rated R. So I'm going, okay, how are they going to do this? Now, my own mother is a huge fan of Predator. It's how I got into it. I actually told her it was PG-13, and it made her turn. She was like, what, are you kidding me? So I'm pretty sure she's going to watch this too. They did it in a way that was actually very smart. There are a ton of brutal, Predator, visceral kills that you would see in any other one. The reason that it's PG-13, and the only reason, there are 0 humans in this movie, so there's no blood. They're all synthetics or other organisms that don't have red blood. So there's just that blue or white, or in the Predator or Yautja case, really that phosphorant green that you'd have. So there you still see spines being ripped out and everything that you would see in it, but there's no red blood. So it didn't really take away from the movie. I put it in mixed because I think there's some people that are still going to say, oh, well, I wanted there to be people, and there isn't. So you don't get that kind of cathartic, for some of you weirdos like me, thing, but it didn't take away from the enjoyment of the movie overall. I actually thought it was a very smart way to make a PG-13 movie. And another thing that I was really mixed on, I'm starting to nitpick because, like I said, I really did enjoy this movie. There's a lot of comedy in this movie, and I think it's like the dosage is okay. If you ever watched the movie The Predator, which came out in 2018, there's a ton of comedy in that movie, and it's so over the top that it gets annoying after a while. There's a lot of running gags in it, almost like Thor: Love and Thunder, where it's like, all right, we get it. This movie, for the most part, it's not too bad. Most of it comes from Elle Fanning's character, the droid, but there are some other things in this movie. Like there's I don't want to give away plot points, but like an animal that's kind of like young, and it's like their version of BB-8 and things like where they're trying to, almost feels like sell toys, but they never overdo it. There are only 1 or 2 moments where I'm like, I kind of eye roll, but it isn't bad enough that it took away from my enjoyment of the movie. A prime example, like I said, Predator of 2018 went way too far, and it took away from my enjoyment. So it's in mixed. Again, this is one of those things that for some people, it may be annoying, but it didn't go far enough for me to like Love and Thunder level annoying. It wasn't too bad, but there are a couple of eye roll moments in there. And then finally for my cons, which again, I'm saying this over and over again, these are nitpicks. 2 things that I didn't really like was, 1, there is no real big bad in this movie. When you're dealing with Predators, there's usually like a 1v1 towards the end of all of them where you're like, okay, this is our payoff. I never really got that payoff in this movie. There is a couple of things that you would consider an antagonist in this movie, one of which is like I guess you would call a primary antagonist, but it never really feels like that major danger that you got from the first Predator, the second Predator, Predator, all of them. You get the idea. I just didn't really feel that big bad in this movie. It didn't take away from my enjoyment too much, but I would really like to see still a primary antagonist that feels like, okay, this guy's in danger here. He could bear it. I just didn't feel it. There's a few of them, but none of them are much. And then finally, this one, again, I feel like is kind of nitpicky, but still is a concern. There is a cliffhanger at the end of this movie, which leads me to believe that they are going to make more of this Badlands, and I'm here for it. I really am, because I found this so enjoyable. What I'm scared of is if they try to make this into like a trilogy or even more, where you're using the Yautja as like this likable protagonist. And this is one of the things that I never made a video about this, but I'm a huge fan of like Terminator, for example. The best one to me is the first one, and I love the second one, where Arnold Schwarzenegger in the first one is the primary antagonist, and then in the second one he comes back as the protagonist, and then they completely go away from like the Terminator being like the protagonist and then having a human element to it. I'm scared they're going to do that because there's no humans in this movie, So are they going to make a whole bunch where there's literally no humans to get around that PG-13 rating and then make the Yautja like the primary protagonist? Like, I don't know how I feel about that. I hope that they still continue this, but I still want to see more things like Prey, where in Prey, if you haven't seen it, there's Native Americans and it's in the 1700s. They could do this almost like Killer of Killer, where they go to different time periods. That's where I want to see it go. So I hope this isn't the end all be all and they just trying to lean on this too much now that it's kind of, you know, within Fox and that Disney property. It's something that is a little bit of a concern. I feel like I'm nitpicking at this point, but at the end, I'm kind of like, they're not going to try to do this where the way I think this is, are they? Overall, still with those, I feel like I'm nitpicking. I sat down in this chair. I expected an okay movie, and I got something that was like really freaking enjoyable. You're a fan of the Predator or any of that lore of that Yautja, I think you'll really enjoy this. If you're a fan of action, I think you'll really enjoy this. It was like probably my most surprising film this year, as far as like my expectations being here and it being there. Expectations for me with movies really do matter. I'm not trying to say that this movie is an Oscar winner. That's why I always talk about rating things to scale. And in this case, action, adventure, sci-fi, it honestly is possibly my second favorite Predator film. I have to watch Prey again, but it's like those two I really enjoyed and they're right here. The first one's still the GOAT for me, but this is a great direction for this. So people who are like on the fence about this and you want to watch it, I feel like this movie is going to be well received. I haven't seen anything about it so far. I've stayed away from watching any reviews or anything, but I can't see fans of this not liking this. I really can't. Maybe they'll have concerns like me, but other than that, really awesome. My scale, like I always do, I'm actually going to give this an A. This is awesome. I can't wait to watch it again. I'm going to buy it. If I say I'm going to buy something, that means I'm putting it in my cloud. Like when I buy things off Apple. I bought the Black Phone. I bought Sinners this year. I bought Weapons this year. I'm buying this year. This is top 5 for me this year. I don't know what I'm interested to see what other people said about it. So if you did see it, let me know what you think about it in the comment section, bro. Man, I love stuff like that. There's no outro on this channel.